Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dice Towers Daily Chat. I am Eric Sommer, running this particular bus for the first time. Thank you all for joining me, and thank you to my guest for tonight, Rich Sommer. Hi, Rich. I haven't seen you in a long time.
We have not gotten to see each other in the third dimension in a good couple of years.
Yeah, in fact, I went back and looked. The last time you and I talked live, Rich, do you know when that was?
Uh-oh, hold on. I feel like it would have been, I'm going to guess it was at a BGG con. Is that accurate?
I think it was on your show.
Oh, that we spoke to each other, you mean, not saw each other in person.
Saw each other live was even later than that.
Yeah, okay, yes.
But
no, I don't know. When was it that we spoke to each other?
We last spoke on May 17th, 2017, on an episode of your live board game talk show, Cardboard.
That's 3 years and 3 days ago.
I know! That's insane.
That's a long
time. That is crazy. I had no idea it had been that long. So going back, I actually had it on my phone. And it's because I wanted to hear your theme song. And we had, trying to think back to what we chatted about right away. We were sharing our joint love of the escape room games.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Exit, we were raving about, and Escape Room, the game, we were raving about, and Unlock had not yet come out yet. We had played, I think, a demo, and I was waiting anxiously for Unlock to come out. Now I've played, like several dozen Unlock adventures, and it's been 3 years since we got to talk to each other.
That's bonkers. That's too long.
Yeah, so you're out in California right now, under quarantine, I'm sure.
That's correct. I am locked up in Los Angeles here. We walk around our neighborhood as much as often. Okay.
Yeah.
As often as possible, as much as possible. And that's it. I've barely left my neighborhood since roughly March. I think March 13th is when we actually stepped inside for the last time. I've done a little tiny bit of going around outside of my neighborhood, but not much.
Yeah, we try and do the daily walk. My wife really instituted that so that we get, one, just to get the steps that you'd normally get, that she would get walking around the office and the kids would get walking around school, rather than just sitting in Zoom meetings all day. It gets us outside and gets us a little active and just gets the blood flowing a little bit. So it's been important for us to do that every day.
Yeah, we do a morning mile. When the kids are up, when everybody's up around 8 a.m., we go hit the sidewalks for about 1 mile. And then throughout the day, we try to get people outside. I'm doing a lot of Ring Fit Adventure on my Nintendo Switch, which is a delight.
I feel terrible because I was all gung-ho about the Ring Fit Adventure and made it. How far did I get? I was in World 7 or something. Significant progress, feeling good. And then I got sick somewhere around the early part of the year and just wasn't feeling terribly good and up for being that active, because I was doing it early in the morning, getting up early and exercising there, and I just haven't gotten back into it.
I had a similar thing. I was out of town for a job in Toronto from last August through January of this year. And I got Ring Fit right when it came out, and I was doing it in Toronto just sort of every other day to kind of try and do something. And then once I came home, it was probably 2 months that I didn't touch it. And then when this whole thing started, I thought, well, why not? And so I've done it 3 times a week, every week since March 13th, roughly.
That's good. Yes. How far have you gotten? Which world are you up to?
I think I'm in World 9.
Okay.
I think. So similar, not much further along than you, but I enjoy it. I said to my wife, Virginia, that I have routinely been one of those people who will start a fitness regimen and stick with it for a good, 5 sessions, and then it's gone. I'm just not good at this. I don't have stick-to-itiveness, but this, I don't know, something about the way it gamifies it and the relative ease of just flipping out. And it's probably not as strenuous as other although it does kick my butt some days. I will say there are days that I'm like, okay, that was plenty. But I don't know, something about it. I've had an easier time sticking with it.
Yeah, I was certainly saying the same thing, at least until I quit.
Before you got sick.
Before I stopped. But it felt like something that was entertaining enough, but still challenging enough to feel like I was making progress. And then every once in a while, you get to up the difficulty level and feel like, you know what? The exercises, they're not so hard anymore. Maybe I could up it a little bit. And then you're like, okay, yeah, that was
really
enough.
Does up it.
It does. And the repetitions. And then, but my kids would play it. And my youngest has set the difficulty at like level 6 or something. So it doesn't have nearly the repetitions or the repeats. And he's just powering through and darting through every level. And he's like, Dad, I'm way farther than you. Like, what? You're not even doing it.
He's speed running Ring Fit.
Yes, basically. That is what's happening. So chat is going wild. We are happy to answer some of your questions. But I am just so excited to see Rich that I was ready to ask him some of my own. We did have one come in over Twitter, somebody who wasn't going to be able to make it to the live show and wanted me to ask, and this sort of goes with our original intro, you up until, I guess not as recently anymore, but a few years ago, were hosting a live call-in show called Cardboard, and no one has attempted to do a live, like, radio call-in style. I guess we sort of have with these live chats, we have answering questions via chat, but as far as calling in, people haven't really tried to do that. And so this was Baker on Twitter was asking, what were some of the challenges that you ran into doing Cardboard as a live call-in show? And do you think anyone will try and pick that up and carry that baton?
Well, I'll take the second half first, because I've had people reach out to me in the board gaming community asking for sort of a layout of what software was I using, what equipment was I using, how did I do it, because they wanted to sort of pick up the mantle.
Okay.
I think I've had at least 2, maybe 3 people reach out with that same question, and I've given them all the same exacting, information that I was using. It wasn't very complex. It was just a bunch of, stuff plugged into other stuff and whatever. But so I kind of assumed someone would pick it up, and I'd love for someone to do that. But as far as the most challenging aspects, well, if you listened to the show, you were treated to all of the things that could go wrong with a live podcast, nigh weekly. It was a real trial by fire sort of experience, because I sort of, I'm putting this word in quotes, but famously did not test any of the equipment ever before I tried it, and never really looked at it in between shows. I just sort of shut it off and said, well, that was not how I should run that show. And then the next time I'd say, I want to do the show again, I'd go, what went wrong last time? Don't remember. Turn it all on. Oh, yeah, that thing. And yes. It was just... the biggest challenges, I think, were obviously technical. It is kind of making that work without an actual telephone line. If I had an actual physical telephone line, it would be a much simpler endeavor.
Okay.
But I didn't. I was running it through a lot of chains of Skype and this thing called callinstudio.com, and then through Spreaker, which allows you to broadcast live. Any of those elements in that chain, if anything went wrong, there would be significant delays in the audio, and that was the biggest problem. The only other real challenge was part of also what made it kind of fun and sexy, which was you didn't know what any given call was going to be. And so 95% of them ended up being absolutely delightful, and maybe 5% would be calls that I would kind of, in the back of my head, I'd be thinking, okay, I still have people sitting at their desks somewhere in the world listening to this. We have to pick this up somehow. We have to make this entertaining.
Yeah.
And so there was just that sort of kind of trying to keep the ball in the air was a challenge as well. But I miss it all the time. If there was a little switch on my wall that I could just flip that said it's on, and I didn't have to turn on the 4 or 5 different elements to make it happen, or plug that into that, or if I didn't have to do all that, I and if it was free, that's the other thing. It did cost money to keep all those services going.
Right.
I would happily do it. Anytime I had an hour, but that became difficult. I still think about it from time to time, and I've had people reach out during this weird time that we're in, asking for me to pick up that thing again, and I do consider it often, but I got my kids and I got it's just I'm shockingly busy for doing nothing during this quarantine. I think everyone's experiencing that.
Oh, I certainly I see that. Like, without as much scheduling to do, there's a lot more that you have to do just to keep everything sane, I think, in your sphere. It's weird. Like, my normal game group has tried to get some Skype gaming, some online gaming set up during our normal Sunday night game period. And it's strange. My focus has sort of shifted. I'm not as interested in spending the whole Sunday evening playing when I've got my family here and they're asking to play stuff. And I'm just like, until we can actually get back together, and that's now my away from the house outlet, it just doesn't feel right to be sitting in front of the computer. It's weird. It's a weird thing.
That's an excellent point. And I think that I share that with you as well. I agree. There's something about, and I have a weekly game night thing I'm doing with my friends in Minnesota. We're playing Charterstone through the app, but together over Zoom or whatever. Mm-hmm. We do that, and then on Tuesday nights I have Travolta Tuesdays, where I watch a John Travolta movie with a friend of mine. Anyway, those two regular nights notwithstanding, I do find it sort of, I feel compelled, not only compelled, I want to hang out with my family. They don't have anything distracting them either. So it feels, in one way, it feels a little unfair for me to go and sort of just turn my back on them when they are all sitting there doing family things.
Just waiting for you to come back out of the room.
Exactly. No. Whereas normally we all have things to distract us. So me choosing to be distracted by a game is not as big a deal. But right now it feels almost like, and they've all been wonderfully understanding of it, but it still feels like I have to choose to walk away from them in a moment. And that's just I like my family. I like being a dad. I like being a husband. And it's a harder thing to walk away from right now.
Yeah. The Mr. E in the chat brings up your game night episodes. You did a few of those, I think, before the quarantine situation hit with Rodney Smith, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And asking, will you do any more of them? Are you hoping to do so in the future?
Oh, absolutely. I love doing game night with Lincoln and Nikki and Dave Arnott and Rodney. Whenever Rodney's in town, part of the reason he's often in Los Angeles is to go do those game night events because of his sort of partnership with BGG right now. And
right.
He was here in March. Actually, the week that everything went away was the week between he was flying back from somewhere in maybe France. I don't remember what game thing was happening there. And then he was here for a couple of days on his way to Reno for whatever was that Gamma, maybe?
Yep.
Something that was happening in Reno. And he came here for a few days. And he and I went to Las Vegas for a night to watch Penn and Teller film Fool Us, which was it was in that moment of pre-hysteria where I don't think I touched our hotel room doorknob once. I don't think he did either. I know we hit every elevator button like this.
Yeah.
We were just about ready to see everything shut down. But anyway, this is not answering your question. Your question was about game night. Yes, I would love to do game night again. Lincoln has offered an effectively open invitation. And whenever I get the chance, I will absolutely go there. Obviously, it might be a minute before anyone's doing game night except for Lincoln and Nikki, but I would definitely love to do that again. I just like playing games, so doesn't matter if there's a camera or not. I just like playing games.
Yeah, sounds good. So I have a game that someday, Rich, I need to play with you. I don't know if you've heard of it, and the reason is because you had a significant role in Firewatch, a fantastic game. I don't know. I know it's on PlayStation 4. I don't know if it's on any other systems.
I know you can get it on Steam, and you can get it on Xbox Live, and you can get it on the Switch.
Okay, awesome. And some would call this a walking simulator. I think it's more of a character study and an exploration game. Gorgeous game, nice quiet pace sort of game. And Rich is the narrator of the main character. It is about a guy who goes off into the woods as a fire tower attendant, whose job it is to detect any fires and report it back to the main base. So I don't know if you've heard of this game, Rich.
No, I have not. What?
So this is called Fire Tower by
That's crazy.
Gwen Ruel and Sam Bryant. It's from Runaway Parade Games. 2 to 4 players. But it's not what you'd necessarily think. You are manning a fire tower in this game in one of the corners of the board, but your job is not to save the world. It's not to put out the fire. It is to use your cards and I think magic to steer the fire toward the other player's towers so that they burn down first.
Sure. It sounds like another simulation.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. It's entertaining, and it's a cool little tactical abstract puzzle as the fire tokens spread, and you're trying to create fire breaks and bulldozers and stuff to get it away from you. And if it reaches the core of your tower, you've lost. But it just seems weird thematically.
Yeah, that's weird. That's,
anyway,
generally anyone working in one of those fire towers, you would hope would not do anything you do in that game.
You would think. So I feel like your game, Firewatch, is a more realistic portrayal of the job. But still, someday, Rich, we're going to play this game. Fire
it's
Tower.
funny. A number of years before I did Firewatch, and I've talked about this a little bit, but my friend Michael Gladys, who was on Mad Men as well, we found I got this book from then Borders Booksellers called Cabins and Cottages of Southern California. And one of the places that you could rent, this is before Airbnb and VRBO and things like that, one of the places you could rent is an actual fire tower just about 45 minutes north of Bakersfield, California.
Okay.
It's a non-operational anymore. They use slightly different technology now in that part of the country, but it is a legit former fire tower. And so we rented it for a couple of nights. You go up these very narrow stairs, and it is exactly as it's portrayed in the video game. And I don't know how it's portrayed in there. It sounds like they may have taken some liberties with the job of fire tower.
There's no stairs. You're just there. Yeah.
Fair enough. But it was a very, I was glad to have had that experience before I did the video game, because you had a sort of a sense of the atmosphere of that place.
Yeah.
But it is, if you ever have the chance to find your way to a fire tower, I do recommend it. It's pretty trippy. You get up there and you just see, the whole point of it is that it's on a higher ground, and it's higher than the higher ground. You can see for miles. It got a little breezy in the night, and the whole thing felt like we were, the two of us, going to die. But other than that, and the very intense 3 a.m. pee break that I had to take in the wind and down that terrible staircase. And I went down to the ground, much to the protestation of my friend, who was like, just go to the edge. I was like, no, I'm going downstairs. And it was a real experience. This is what we were supposed to talk about, right? This is the kind of thing.
This is what we're here for.
I figured.
You mentioned Mad Men, which was a program that you were on and did a wonderful job in. And when did Mad Men end? When was that?
The finale aired 5 years ago this past Sunday.
5 years? Only? Okay. And so I was wondering, are you the guy I need to talk to get a Mad Men reunion / sketch where you're all in the pitch room but over a Zoom call?
Oh, boy. I'm not the guy, because I could think of about 15 people who'd say no before I got the chance to say no. But I do imagine there's someone who could say no before me. Sure, I can put you in touch with the right people.
Okay. I'm just curious if that's something that was on the docket. Okay, so we sort of danced around playing games with the family. How old is your child these days, and what have you been playing with them?
2 children. My daughter is 12. She'll be 13 in December. And my son Patrick will be 10 at the end of August.
Okay.
We have played shockingly few games during this time. It's really interesting. I think, games demand some focus, some energy, some attention. And these guys, after their school days, are just tapped. They're doing this online schooling, as so many people are doing across the country. And their schools in particular have been really attentive. And my son again, he's in fourth grade. Third grade. He's in school from 9 a.m. to 11:30 or 12 usually, and then has like a 1 o'clock workshop, art or computer or something. My daughter is in from 9 a.m. till 2:30, and by the end of that, I mean, they're I don't know. It's a different kind of energy that's demanded of them than even being out in the before times. For some reason,
Yeah.
this has been really demanding. So people are kind of wiped out by the end of the day. We did play a very early morning game of Heist, the Rob Davio.
Yes.
It's a cooperative game. It beeps very loudly, and it woke my wife up on a weekend, and that was a bummer. That was a long conversation. And then my son and I have played, there's a Haba game called Secret Code. It's called like
13
Secret Code
plus 4.
13 plus 4.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. And he loves that game, which is great because it makes me feel like the dad of the year playing a math game with him.
Nice.
And so those are really just about it.
Okay.
I've been playing a ton of, like I said, Charterstone, and on the nights where the Charterstone app is glitchy, which happens from time to time, we find our way to Seven Wonders or Ticket to Ride or something. So a lot of virtual games, again talking to each other over Zoom, but and then I've played some cribbage and some backgammon again online. But as far as in-person gaming, it's been pretty spare.
Jason Levine is trying to recruit you in the chat for the virtual gaming con that the Dice Tower and Board Game Geek is putting together during what would have been Dice Tower East in late June, early July. He wants you to show up and hang out. So I guess you have an invitation, Rich, if you want to hang out.
I don't see why I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'll be in this room, so I'm down for that.
I think Jason will be in touch, apparently.
Okay, perfect.
Haylox asks, do you ever do voices for characters in your gaming sessions?
I don't really. I have. I have friends who are actors and I have friends who are not actors, and both seem to roll their eyes equally when I try to do a voice when I'm reading it. The actor friends are like, "We get it," and the non-actor friends are like, "We get it." So I think I just try to steer clear as much as possible. If I do it, like just before everything hit the fan, we were about 5 or 6 games into Clank Acquisitions Incorporated, the Legacy Clank, and it's fantastic. And I'm truly sad that I really don't know. I don't know how to make that one work online when we have one copy of the game. I think it's impossible. So I don't know that we will get back to it for a long time. But during that, I would do little voices, and it was met with great opposition, vocal opposition. So no, I generally avoid it unless I'm like out to be annoying.
So Ferg has sort of a related question for both of us. What storytelling game, if the audience was receptive, what storytelling game would you most love to narrate?
Ooh.
Or what game, if made into a book, video game, or movie, would you love to read a script for?
Oh, that's very interesting. I was going to ask, so what defines a storytelling game when you say, are you talking about like a Dead of Winter type thing, or are you talking about like a Seventh Continent, like that kind of thing?
I think something along those lines, like a Mice and Mystics is what I would think of,
sure.
or Aftermath, something like that.
Sure, something with a paragraph book.
Yeah.
That sort of, I don't know. I mean, if the audience was receptive, I don't know. I like all of those, but I really like hearing other people read, so I generally try and give those duties to other people.
Yeah.
Even though I am generally I've never played a role-playing game really, but I'm sort of the game master of any game that we're playing. I tend to try and pass off some of that stuff so that I can avoid the eye rolls, but also I enjoy having things read aloud that are meant to be read aloud. I'd rather receive them than perform them.
Yeah, and I mean, I know I enjoy reading the paragraphs so much. I don't want to necessarily monopolize that, at least in a play situation. I played a game recently that I just adored the narration for. It was Detective City of Angels. Have you played this one?
No, I have it right over there in shrink wrap. I'm dying to get it out, but I don't know how now I will. But I
Yeah,
want to play it.
that one is hard because there's secret information and stuff. But the main antagonist is the chisel.
Right.
And the briefings for this are told in the voice of like a grizzled police lieutenant. And it's very well written, and I just had so much fun reading that. Everyone's like, "Hey, Eric, you read this intro," and I just got so into it. And they're like, "Well, do you want me to read the rest?" No, this is mine. I'm reading this now. I really enjoyed the way that all came together. So definitely get that opened and
Yes.
try it out.
The art is, it's, who's that? Vincent.
Is it Dutray?
Yes. That art is so pretty. I do need to crack it out. I have that in the is it Van Ryder Games? It is, right?
That is Van Ryder Games, yeah.
I really, for the beginning of my gaming career, I thought I was not into theme. Like, I just thought theme didn't matter to me.
Okay.
I was like, it's not the part of the game that I care about. And still to some degree that's partially true. That said, Van Ryder Games and Plaid Hat Games, I would say, are the two companies that have gotten me the most sort of sucked into actually caring about the themes. Hostage Negotiator, I think, is a fantastic theme for a solo game.
Yeah.
This Final Girl that Van Ryder just completed the Kickstarter. I'm a big horror movie fan, and the theme of that is right up my alley as well. And I'm glad it's solitaire because I've read some of the copy for it, and it seems almost like I'd be uncomfortable in a room of people. It's very violent. But
yeah.
Anyway, to your point on Detective and on Hostage Negotiator and on Final Girl, and then everything Plaid Hat has done. I have Mice and Mystics, Dead of Winter, Forgotten Waters, all of those things, those themes have started to kind of pull me into in a way. I can't get into the theme of like Clank. Everybody gets to know, when I'm reading, it's all done in this like business speak, and all my buddies are like, ugh, they hate the flavor text.
Okay.
Like, no. But I like the flavor text in those games. Plaid Hat, Van Ryder, those games are well written.
Let's see. What I just saw something that was piquing my interest in the chat, and I lost it because scrolling. Where did it go? I had it. There was. We were talking about.
Do we have the same arm? The same microphone.
We
arm?
very well might. It's the Rode arm. It's like the one good one that you can pick up.
That's right. That doesn't cost $5 million.
Somebody said that Clank Legacy can be done on Tabletop Simulator. They played a
Really?
full 10 games last week.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that information. I wonder if I could get in there and fiddle with it to get all of our stuff to where we had it.
Right, that's the tricky point. You'd have to figure out how to
I guess I
make
could
the
dig through the deck
adjustments.
and add some cards and add some stickers. I mean, there's all of that, but that does sound like too much work. We'll see. But that's a great thank you for that. I need to get Tabletop Simulator is a whole language that I am not fluent in. It is a tough thing for me to get. I tried playing Blood Rage on it, and it was very frustrating just to figure out how to flip the card to put, pass them over. It's really hard. It's not intuitive to me.
The first time I tried using it, somebody was doing a demo for me, and I was having lots of trouble. And in the last few weeks, my brother in LA was wanting to play something. So we've been playing the Legend of Zelda Clockwork Kingdom fan game. And I did the whole tutorial thing, which teaches you how to use the keyboard commands, and you almost have to keep one hand on the mouse and one hand on the keyboard for camera controls. And that makes it a lot easier. A lot of the really important commands are right there on the left hand, as far as flipping and randomizing. And once you learn how to do the two-hand thing, it's a little bit easier. But still, like adjusting, for this Clockwork Kingdom game, you've got tiles, and you have to, say, rotate a quartet of them. And in real life, you just go, okay, They just
Exactly.
all slide that way. But in Tabletop Simulator, you got to pick up each one and rotate it, and they all rotate, and then they all have to slide and change position, and that's 16 different moves instead of just taking all 4 tiles and going done.
Yep.
And that's the tricky part with Simulator.
Well, that is maybe tricky enough for me. I don't know. I got to see. And the other thing, I mean, I might be able to figure it out, but I'm not sure my buddies are willing to put in the time. We're not all. I'm the deepest in of a lot of my friends, not all of them, but a lot of them, and I still am not like the deepest person into it. So if I might be willing to learn it, but I can tell you a lot of my gaming partners would be like, nope, I'd rather not.
Yeah, I guess that's it's a little bit of a hurdle, and I have found that playing games takes longer. If it's a 1 hour game, it's going to be at least 90, just because you're wrestling with the controls and all that. I think continued use makes it easier.
Of course.
Somebody mentioned that you have to have the zoom controls ready as well. If you hold the Alt key, it zooms in on whatever you're looking at. But if you're reading a lot of cards, that you have to sort of. You can't just look at your hand like you would in real life. You have to zoom in on each of the cards. And,
oh boy.
It's a trickier thing. One question came by earlier from Kabuki Kid, asking, what solo games have you enjoyed that aren't apps already? I think you mentioned one that you had been playing recently.
Hostage Negotiator, yes. I haven't. I truly have not been. So a lot of my solo gaming time, what would be time for that, has been taken over by sorting my son's Lego collection.
Oh.
I started sorting it right when this all started happening, and it's still going. I mean, there's not much I can access from here, but like, here's one thing, and now imagine that we have a lot of those, and I've been sorting it just because one day we were sitting and it was all in a big pile, and I said, hey Pat, would your life be easier if those were all, because he was trying to build something, he was sort of wading through the stuff, and I said, would it be easier if you knew what drawer to pull that? He said yes. I was like, I'm going to do that for you. Cut to 2 months later, I am still probably about a month away from finishing it. So my solo gaming time has been kneecapped. But as I said, I did just back Final Girl, which won't come for another year, but I'm excited for it. I have Nemo's War and what's the something the Zeds?
Oh, Dawn of the Zeds?
Dawn of the Zeds,
okay.
Yes. Those two are sort of my big solo games that I have here that are solo only that I have recently said, I got to get those. I got to finally get them to the table. They are a little intimidating, both of them. But what else am I doing other than sorting Legos and talking to Rich Sommer on YouTube? I find myself saying that a lot. What else am I doing? And yet I don't feel like I have time to do anything. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get any of them to the table.
I think most of my solo stuff recently has been, I started working through my backlog of the puzzle games. So I had a couple of sets of Unlock that I hadn't worked my way through. And while I bought them to play with the kids, they aren't always in the mood for that. They would sort of get into a situation where even if they were interested, they'd sit down, and as soon as they hit a brick wall and were stumped, they're like, I'm done. I'm bored. Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm trying to think through stuff and looking at all the clues. They're like, Dad, do something or we're leaving. It's like, I'm trying to keep your interest.
I would.
So I have played through many of those solo, which does increase the time it takes to play some of them.
Yes.
Yeah, because when you don't have multiple minds working on it. So all of my scores are like over an hour. But it was very enjoyable. The most recent set of Unlock is really good.
What's the most recent set?
Oh, let's see. Is it Heroic Adventures? It hasn't. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of the previous one. Yes, they now come in triple boxes. Right. You've got, there's one that's not Sherlock Holmes. The Sherlock Holmes one is also one of my favorite adventures, but that was the previous set. This one there's a French detective tale that's in the middle there that I really enjoyed. There was a time travel adventure that was really cool, where you're actually changing the landscape, but you start out with like a a tableau of stuff, and as you go back in time, you replace pieces of it as you change history.
Oh, I like that. That sounds fun.
Cool.
I do have a couple. I see a couple of unlocks over there, and I have 3 exit. Actually, I have 3 regular exit games I haven't tried, but I also got Exit: The Catacombs of Horror, which is the bigger exit game that has 2 or 3 stages to it.
Yes.
That I suppose I could just solo those. It's sort of it feels like accepting my fate at that point, going, well, it's really not going to get to the table anytime soon.
That is what I did with most of the exits as well. Eventually I kept asking the kids, you want to play this? You want to play this? Fine. One night, I'm going to play it. A couple times it was family game night, and they're like, nah, I'd rather read a book or run around in the corner. So I played my own exit game. Catacombs of Horror is excellent. It's one of my favorites.
You played it?
Yes. It has a fire warning on it, so be careful.
I've heard that. I have opened the box, so I saw some of the things that are in there that might speak to that.
Don't burn anything down. But it's very well done. I actually went through it once, and then I ran it for a group. I somehow ended up with a review copy as well as buying one. And so I ran it for a group, and they took significantly longer. Like they took a full 4 hours to get through the adventure. Both halves. And I was somewhere in the 2.5 hour range for completing it on my own. So it can certainly vary widely.
But those games also are sort of a language that your fluency can kind of strengthen as you play them more. You start to go, I think I know, especially those exit games, there's some physical component to it. The unlock games are all the cards, but the exit games, God bless Inga and
Marcus Brand.
Marcus Brand, thank you. Those exit games are phenomenal. We probably had this conversation 3 years ago, but those exit games are just so good. The way that they dimensionalize the experience in a different way. It's not unlock is fun, and you're cracking codes more than you are sort of really experiencing this puzzle with it. Whereas with the exit games, I mean, anything, once you take that shrink wrap off, anything is fair game. Yeah. Anything below the level of shrink wrap is fair game, which is so much fun.
Unlock has pushed the envelope a little bit in some of those more recent ones. Not in the sense that, I mean, Exit has the ability to say, we're destructive. You're going to destroy that. You're going to recycle this game when you are done with it. So
one shot at
we can do whatever. Unlock has still remained with you can reset us, but they've added extra components. Sometimes you'll get a map. Sometimes you'll be combining the cards in physical ways. Sometimes the app works. It's not just entering a code anymore. You might have something far more. There's one called Expedition Challenger where you're actually moving around in a map. It feels like you're playing a video game,
that's so fun.
And moving around positionally while you're solving puzzles. And now you have to go to a location before you can manipulate things. They're pushing it a little bit, which is cool.
I all of that is so welcomed to me. I love, and I know that this can start to branch into a conversation about things like legacy games, the impermanence of games, where I am fully okay with a game that asks me to destroy components because it gives me an experience that I never have had or could have otherwise. I like when a game is like, this will permanently alter this copy of this game. You can't go back from this.
Yeah.
I like that. But I understand why some people don't. Anyway, there was one of the exit games that I remember, this was a long time ago, so I think it was one of the early games, so hopefully I'm not spoiling much, but there was a series of numbers, and I was playing with a friend who plays games, but not quite as often as I do, and he said, it feels like a phone number, and I was like, well, it's not a phone number. We have to figure out how to put it into the thing, and, he took my word for it, and we kept going, and then finally I said, you know what? Oh, man, maybe it's a phone number. And we called it, and it was a phone number. I was like, oh, my gosh, I love this game so much. Yeah. It was amazing.
It's actually something.
Eat my hat.
Yes. One Pip wonder, I think you mentioned role-playing games a few minutes ago, but what's your experience with RPGs? Is that something that you dabble in?
No, almost zero.
Yeah.
In high school, we had for about, I don't know, maybe a couple of months, we had a weekly game of the Steve Jackson game Toon going, which is a role-playing game set in a cartoon universe where you don't die, you just get flattened, which is pretty fun. And then I played one game of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the role-playing game. With the exception of those two experiences, I've never done it. That being said, in this time of being alone, this actually does come back around to a solo game that I did play. I bought the, what's it called? Call of Cthulhu starter kit.
Oh.
Call of Cthulhu 7th edition starter kit, which is the only role-playing game I've purchased as an adult. And in it, its whole goal is to teach you how to be, I can't remember what they call it. It's not the Crypt Keeper, but whatever the game master is, whatever the GM is in Call of Cthulhu. The Keeper, I think it is. And the way that they teach you sort of how the game works is by playing a solo version where the book is the DM for you. And it's a paragraph book. You roll dice, you write things down, you build a character as you go. That character has experiences, and at the end of the game, you could take that character into a game, or you could create new characters. But ostensibly, at the end of that, you are ready to then be a very beginning keeper in leading some friends through some basic adventures. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it. I don't know. I'm nervous about role-playing games. That I'm not yet convinced it's something I'm going to be good at. I played one round of Fiasco with the Board with Life folks.
Okay.
And that was fun, but it didn't feel like we really did anything. It just felt like sitting around. I guess I would have rather just talked about their lives than. Donald Schultz played an amazing Southern Belle. I remember him saying, "Oh, my Lord." I remember him doing that. It was wonderful. But I would rather have heard about his life a little bit. I don't know.
I have also been a little frustrated on the RPG front. My youngest, my 8-year-old, came with me to a local convention, and he's got friends that he has been hanging out with who are part of the D&D culture at this convention. Their parents play, and they have been surrounded by it all their lives, and so they'll just run over to him and say, "Hey, you want to play D&D?" And so he's like, "Yeah, sure." And so they ran him through some basic adventures, and he's like, "Dad, I want D&D." So I got the Wizards starter set, which is an adventure that takes your characters from 1st to 5th level, I think. And everything is sort of laid out for you, and you've got this pre-made adventure that you can work your way through. And I said, all right, this is great. I will delve into this, and we'll give it a go. And my elder son, now 12, is like, "I want to be the DM." I said, "Oh, okay. You can run things, I guess. I need to know how the rules work, though." So I'm sitting here looking at it's a rule book, and then there's a scenario book. So I'm looking at the rule book, and they've got these pre-printed sheets with all this information, and I'm trying to figure out what like your base magic stat is if you're a cleric versus a wizard, and I'm looking at stuff, and you know, my youngest will be like, "I want to run over here and hit this skeleton." And I'm like, "Okay, how do you do that?" Run, and it's simply not working. And part of it is that our game sessions only end up being about 2 hours at most, and that isn't enough for us to get everything out, figure out what's going on, try and wrestle our way through a couple of checks. And we've made no progress. We've walked around in the woods, and we found a cave, and that's it. And
that's ostensibly one of the easier adventures, right? I mean, they're more simple.
Sure, you think. I would imagine, but it requires so much prep, and my elder son has decided he's not interested. And I think the DM has to know their stuff in and out. You have to be the one to keep things moving and know where it's supposed to go and know what's happening. Because if you don't, and you're sitting there going, "I don't know, what do we do?" It just grinds to a halt. And
I think what I need to do, Jeff Kanata, a board gaming friend of all of ours, has a show called, I think it's called Dungeon Run.
The Dungeon Run.
Is that right?
It airs at the same time as this very program.
Oh, well, so those who are watching this later were over there watching that, and they know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But they've been doing this for years. I think that if I decided I'm going to try role-playing games. I think I would start by listening to as many of those as I could, just to get an idea of the flow. Because without understanding the flow, it is, I think, almost impossible to start from zero with a book and say, I'm supposed to create a world with this. Like you were saying, there are a million references and charts and places to go and chapters and whatever. And Call of Cthulhu has really simplified it. I mean, as far as starter sets go, from what I understand, this is about as entry level as you can get. It truly is as bare bones as I've ever seen in a role-playing game. And I flipped through a few of those books, but there's still so much to keep in your head at once as the GM or DM or keeper or whatever you are. And I think I just need to get that fluency. I have to get that language in my head. It's just not something I'm used to.
What has worked? So the D&D set failed. I think he enjoyed playing with the dice. We got some minis for him, but it just hasn't clicked. But what has, and I brought visual aids just in case we ran out of things to talk about. Okay, hang on a second. I don't want to dump everything on the floor. It's on the bottom of the pile.
Geez.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
We have been playing this. And
that is the perfect marriage of those two things.
And I know RPG fans, those who really love that world, have shunned the Pathfinder adventure card game because it's very mechanical. It's almost entirely checks. And can you acquire this card? Do you have the stats to win this? There's zero role playing. There is a thread of a story. I don't care. Because I love the system. I want to gain those cool cards. I want to see my character get stronger. I like how,
levels.
Just like these decks of cards and how they are assembled and how cards are removed and added and it's so cool. The only issue I'm having is that the kids are not, like when you add I had been playing with just my eldest. And we made it through like the first two decks. We were about to start deck 3. And then they decided they wanted to jump into this again. But they didn't want to just jump into deck 3. No, they wanted to start over. And
that's a problem.
Which required removing so many cards and resorting everything. They started their characters over. But while I was working, like during all of this homeschool stuff, this is all during the quarantine, they would finish their work for the day, and then they'd play a couple games of Pathfinder while I was still working. And so they caught up very quickly in like a week and a half. Week and a half, we were back up to deck 3. And so we started, I had been playing 2 characters. They each had 1, so 4 characters. Here we go into deck 3. And they both go, how come you have 2 characters? I said, well, these are the 2 characters I've been playing forever. And they said, we want 2 characters. So now we have 6 characters, and playing 6 in Pathfinder, the adventure card game, is a very different game from playing like just 2 or 4. There are like 8 locations on the board. It covers the whole table. You still only get 30 turns, and that's not a lot. That's 5 rounds around the board for 6 characters. You have to move very, very quickly when you're playing. But still, I love this game, and I'm glad that this has been a success. This is like everything that wasn't a success in the D&D set has been a success here. So we're running with this.
I am sure the purists could tell us why that should not even be a part of this conversation. But I believe that scratches whatever itch I have ever had for role-playing games. That scratches it. I want to, like you said, I want to level up. I want to get stuff that I put into my deck and it comes and I'm like, I found that knife again. Yeah, I like that feeling.
It's so cool.
And I know you can get that from a role-playing game. It's just a different way to get there. And I don't know. I'm a board gamer. That's the answer. I'm a board gamer.
I think that's really what it is. If you're coming from the other direction, you certainly see the deficiencies in the Pathfinder adventure card game. And I've tried. I don't know if you've looked at Apocrypha. Did you?
I have it. I haven't played it
at all. I let that go.
Yeah.
I backed the Kickstarter. I went and got demos of it at BGG Con before it was fully out. And while I was excited to see the next version of this system, ultimately it just wasn't something that interested me. The theme is too dark. It's not something I could play with the kids. Here, the occasional mutated skeleton shows up, but who cares? The kids will play that. But there's some creepy stuff going on in Apocrypha.
Well, Apocrypha is a psychological horror game.
Yeah.
And those of us who are horror movie fans know that psychological horror is the deepest kind of horror. and those are the moments that are awaiting you in Apocrypha. It's not a kid game.
Yeah. I've also found I'm trashing Mike Selinker games, unfortunately. Thornwatch, the RPG style adventure that felt a little like a Mice and Mystics style adventure that also hasn't hit the table because I'm fearing that it's also a little too dark for what my kids want to play. Despite the animated or the animated theme, the art design, it feels cutesy, but thematically there's like witches eating children, and
right, that's a problem.
I think that's a problem.
Yeah, but they're cartoon witches eating cartoon children.
That's all.
It's fine.
It's fine. Another visual aid. A game that my son latched onto. He's like, Dad, can we play this one? Is Adrenaline.
Aha, yes.
Which
it's a video game.
It is, yes. And it's got cool weapons and stuff. But and I was like, yeah, sure. I think I think they can handle this game, no problem. And then I'm explaining it to them. My wife's in the other room. And I'm like, so you'll be picking up these weapons and you're going for kill shots, and and I start self-censoring, and I start going, okay, so you're going to do damage with tag markers, and
permanent fatal damage.
When someone gets knocked out, you get a skull.
What's the skull from?
So yeah, and that's been a hit with the 8-year-old. He wants to play Adrenaline more.
Good. We brought out my 9-year-old had never played Heroscape, and right at the beginning of the quarantine, I said, "Buddy, I think this is a time." I had already sort of been thinking about it, and then this all happened, and I got it out and I set it up when he was inside, and he's as I previously mentioned, he's a big Lego fan, so there's something to the sort of buildability of that game, and I know that it's impossible to find and whatever, and I should never mention it because whenever I mention it, somebody goes to eBay and they regret it, but I got mine a long time ago.
Yeah,
it's been sitting in my closet for a long time unplayed, and now it finally hit the table again. And it was a hit. Now, we only played the basic rules. We didn't get into the advanced, we never flipped over the characters to get into special abilities and everything. But he really dug it. And I think he would happily move forward in that. Yeah. And it's nothing like the games that we're talking about. But it's closer to Adrenaline, I suppose, than Pathfinder.
Yeah.
But it's especially that basic game. It's very simplistic. It is this guy aims at that guy. Did he hit it? Yes.
Yeah.
Token.
Right. Yeah. It's very abstract tokens and he's knocked out. Yeah.
But it was real fun. His favorite part of it was building his army. I said, okay, now in the basic game, you're supposed to they have pre-built armies and whatever. I said, he saw some of the characters and he was like, I want to use that guy. And I want to use that one. I said, well, all right, well, here's what we'll do. You get 500 points to build an army.
Yep.
We spent an hour and change building our armies. And that was the most fun part of it. He enjoyed the game, but he just, after the game was over, he said, I want to try a different army. I want to build a different army. So he's very into that idea. So maybe we'll get that back to the table. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a big bin of Heroscape. A friend gave me some pieces. I fell into the eBay hole to get some of the base sets, and it has come out, but more as a toy than as a game. I don't think the kids are as interested. In fact, I think they lost some of the rule books. I've got one rule book from one of the minor sets, but like all of the scenario books from the base set and stuff, disappeared in the black hole that is my son's bedroom.
Oopsie.
Yeah, that's a separate issue. But they've been playing, they've been building cool sets, and my youngest wants to create these scenarios and stuff that are totally imbalanced. And, he'll be like, he wants his brother and me to play against each other, but then at some point he comes in as the dragons. And he's like, we're going to decide who we're going to fight with. And like, they always fight with the brother against me. And it's like, why am I doing this? You're going to show up with your dragons. Anyway. It's a different experience for us.
It's true.
Pod 6 asks, what 2 games are you the most excited to get to the table with your game group when you're finally able to get together again?
Well, Clank Acquisitions Incorporated, the Clank Legacy game, for sure.
Yeah.
That's my number one, because that was the one most sort of heinously aborted in this time. But then, I'm looking around real quick here. Because nothing's leaping to mind, but now that we've been talking about it, I mean, Detective has been on the top of my pile since it arrived, and I still haven't played it. Detective City of Angels. Mm-hmm. That would probably be the one.
Okay.
Detective City of Angels.
Yeah.
So Clank Acquisitions Incorporated and Detective City of Angels.
Yeah. I've had Ethereal from Level 99 Games, giant box. In my to-go bag for, I think it came like a week or two before we all shut down. And that one I want to see happen. I want to try that out. It's sort of a monster of a game, and I want to give it a whirl. It seems cool, but it didn't hit the table before we all shut down, and it's not something that I can play remotely. I also just got... I did a live stream with AEG for Tiny Towns. I got to play Tiny Towns with the designer and the whole crew from there. And along with a copy of that, they were prepping me for that, they sent Santa Monica, which is the new
I've heard
one,
really good things
from the Cat Lady designer. And that one I've only flipped through the cards. I think it might be a little much for the kids, so I haven't pushed it to the table with them. Sure. But the cards are adorable. It's all like punny names for these businesses. You're setting up the beachfront in Santa Monica, and so there's all these cool stores with punny names, and that speaks to me. So I want to like play that with the group too.
I did a semi ill-advised game of Don't Mess with Cthulhu with a couple of my Minnesota friends over Zoom, where I put a camera facing the table. There was a lot of, everybody close your eyes except for Matt. And I would show Matt his hand of card. I would look away. Yep. And then, have you played Don't Mess with Cthulhu?
Oh boy.
Okay.
I feel like I have.
Indie Cards and Boards?
Boards and Cards.
Boards and Cards. Thank you. I just got to remember it's alphabetical.
Yes,
Boards
I have played this.
So it's for me, the best social deduction game for below, 8 people. I mean, it's 4 players and it's great. And it's, but you have to be able to see your hand. You have to be able to see, it's all from one deck. You can't really share it over the thing. I'm sure there's a tabletop simulator version of it.
There probably is.
But we sort of hobbled our way through it. It took probably twice as long as a normal game would, but that's a game I just love that game, and we found it enjoyable. It was a little strange to have to sort of hold the cards up and I would turn away, and you had to trust that everyone else was turning away, and it took forever, but it was real fun.
Yeah.
I don't know why I brought that up. I just thought I'd share that little story.
So, Rich, the time has flown by. It's almost been an hour. Before we go, I don't want to let you go until you get a chance to talk about what you've been up to lately. Were there any projects you were able to complete before things shut down? Anything you want to promote? What have you been up to?
Well, I've told you just about everything that I've been up to. That's everything. As far as projects that I completed, the job I was doing in Toronto was for a show on the CW called In the Dark, which is airing on Thursday nights. We're about midway through the second season of it. If you haven't seen the show yet. The first season is on Netflix.
Okay.
And the second season you can watch for free on the CW app. And then at the end of the season, I think the whole second season will go to Netflix as well. We're about halfway through that. And by the way, my board game buddies that I mentioned, with whom I've been playing Charterstone, Matt, David, and Kevin, who are all in Minnesota, they have a cameo as subway platform guys in episode 8 of In the Dark. I don't know if you'll see any of their faces, but they were all on that platform, I promise you, because I was there too. And
Excellent.
it was, they all came up to Toronto, and it was a great time. Anyway, that, and then I also did a show called Run for HBO. It was a short series, 7-episode series.
Yep.
The 7th episode airs this Sunday. So if you have HBO, or if you're going to be getting HBO Max when it comes out this week, next week, very soon,
all right,
then you can catch up on that. I'm a very tiny part. You could root for the other people, but I'm there adding some color, they say.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the promos for Run, but I did not know you were involved, so I need to go check that out.
You'll hear my voice on the phone a lot.
Ah, excellent.
That's where I hang out most of the time.
Well, Rich, I am so happy that we got to hang out and talk, and we got to catch up. And again, someday, in the hopefully not too distant future, we will get together and we're going to play Fire Tower.
I would like that very much. I'm very in for that. Eric, thank you so much for thinking to ask me to do this, especially for your first one. That's a delight. And it was great to see you. I'm glad you're doing well. Stay safe and keep on your toes out there in the world. I've got my mask here.
Oh, good.
For whenever I go outside, I'm ready.
Perfect.
So stay ready.
Excellent. And for those of you watching, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned every day. We're still doing these Dice Tower daily chats at 9 Eastern or whatever your particular time zone is. You can always watch them later. And if you're interested in seeing more of me, every 2 weeks at this time period, I join Crystal Pisano for Dice Tower Tonight. So tune in for that. It's kind of like this, except we play stupid games. So good times. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Rich, and thank you for watching the Dice Tower.